Good morning. Oh, gotta light myself. Have a little fancy dancy, what they call ring light now, and it makes it so I don't have as many shadows on my face. Oh, helps if I turn on the mic so y'all can hear me. Yeah, but you didn't need to know any of what I was saying anyways. Just talking about my fancy little ring light I had to turn on. It is Tuesday, and it is 10 a.m., and I am coughing. Glad you are here with us this morning. Couple of announcements, and then we'll get going. Baby bottles, bring them back this Sunday if you have not done so already. This is the last Sunday to bring them back, and so make sure you do that, or you're going to have a change jar for the rest of the year, which, that wouldn't be we want them to have the money now, but, say love you. Annual celebration on 2/27. So in a few weeks, that's like a week and a half. I guess that's not a few weeks. So we hope you'll plan to join us. We're going to have pizza, and we're asking people to bring the salads and the sides and dessert. So we hope you'll plan to join us for that. That will not be live to my expectation. I don't believe we will have that on video. So hope you're here. And then lastly, night of worship on 3/4. That would be the Friday following that. We hope you will plan to join us for that. Same thing, probably won't be live streamed. So plan to come, and we'll see you then. And I think that's it for announcements. Okay, so last week I had thrown out the idea of doing two possible studies, kind of focuses over the next period of time. And of the two, it seemed like everyone was wanting to kind of jump into the idea of like, what's the big idea behind the book of Revelation? What is it like? So what does it really mean for us here today now? And so I wanted to, that's what everyone seemed to go for. So we'll jump into that. But what we're going to do is we're going to actually take the first section or a section from that through the Bible study that I had shared. And we're going to cover apocalyptic literature. And we will consider what that, since that's what the book of Revelation is, what is, how that, that will kind of set the stage for us as we move into and consider, are you ready? That's what I'm affectionately titling this. It could morph into another name, but I think that's the name we'll go with and we will use. And so are you ready? Because that's kind of what the book of Revelation is about. But let's jump into which one of these? Well, I want that one. Okay, let's jump into the topic of apocalyptic literature and just consider what it overall, because the book of Revelation is a genre of literature. The majority of it is apocalyptic, and we'll talk about what that term means. The first chapter is vision-ish, and then chapters 2 and 3 are epistolatory. I don't know if that's an actual word, but I'm going to say it's a word, and it's letters from that John is writing to the churches, the 7 churches, and then after that we get into the apocalyptic literature genre really fully. But chapter 1 starts it. So let's consider apocalyptic literature, and I'm not going to be able to see the chat as we're going through this. So if you have any questions, throw them in there, but I'll have to answer them after the fact. So make sure you make sure if you ask a question, you give the context so that we can cover it. Okay, so through the Bible, apocalyptic literature. Apocalypse in Greek means revelation, disclosure, or unveiling. And the reason this word is used is because it is the unveiling of God's plan. So as apocalyptic literature is given to us, it was given for the purpose of unveiling God's plan in redemption and his purposes. And so God's plan that is revealed in apocalyptic literature is God's plan to bring judgment on the wicked and to bring the faithful in Christ into his eternal kingdom. So when we think about it, it's this overarching story, this overarching perspective of God bringing his people to himself and exercising justice and judgment on those who oppose him. And as I like to affectionately say, God wins. The book of Revelation and apocalyptic literature in general are about God winning. If we divorce that from the perspective, if we divorce God winning from the main message of Revelation and the other primary apocalyptic book, we're going to miss the point. We're going to make it about something that it was never intended to be. Apocalyptic literature, the book of Revelation, is about God winning, not about giving us specific hints to look for, so to speak. The two most significant books with apocalyptic literature are Daniel and Revelation. Now, Daniel's not entirely apocalyptic, but there are aspects of apocalyptic literature in the book of Daniel, and Revelation is almost entirely. So those are the two main books, but these are not the only two. With them, there's sections of the book of Isaiah, the book of Jeremiah and Ezekiel, Joel, Zechariah. Daniel, it's actually chapters 7 to 12 are the apocalyptic section. In the New Testament, it would be parts of Matthew 24. The sheep and the goats kind of falls into that category. And then parts of Mark 13, the Olivet Discourse, the apocalyptic revelation of what will occur. 2 Thessalonians 2, and then all Revelation. So since we're primarily going to be considering the message of Revelation, it's the idea, it's reminding us that God wins. Apocalyptic literature is similar to prophetic literature in that it tells about future events for the original audience. So a lot of Daniel's apocalyptic literature is actually something that happened in our past. For Daniel, some of the things that are given to him in vision are stuff that is past tense for us. It was future tense for Daniel. It's been a while since I looked at it explicitly, but I think actually all of Daniel's apocalyptic literature might be past tense for us. Don't hold me to that, but it was giving us a picture of what would happen, the kingdoms that would come up and rise after Babylon and all that stuff. But prophetic literature tends to be very straightforward. It tells you, if you don't do this, this is going to happen. You're going to get invaded. You're going to be dispossessed. God is going to judge you. Apocalyptic literature is different because it is highly symbolic. So you get pictures of what's occurring as opposed to being told what's going to occur. So you can think of it this way. Prophetic literature is primarily about hearing, while apocalyptic literature is primarily about seeing. I think this is why parts of prophetic literature, it's about oracles that prophets went and spoke, where the apocalyptic is writing and trying to convey what they see. They're really, a lot of it is the author trying to struggle to explain what they see. It's unlike anything we have in modern literature. However, it was not odd to the time it was written. It was normal for them. It's not. You would have other apocalyptic literatures written at the same time. They weren't inspired. They weren't part of the Bible. They weren't. They're not God's word. But it was a genre that was used at that point in time. Just like how we had what we consider epistles are a genre of their time. And we can kind of compare what we have in the Bible to other epistles and know that they share some similarities, or gospels. So stories of good news. So the gospels are not. There are aspects of the gospels that reflect other cultural writings of the day. Not entirely, but The same thing is true with apocalyptic literature. There was apocalyptic literature. The genre existed prior to Daniel being written and prior to or around the time Daniel was written, and it certainly was not new for John's audience. They may have encountered other apocalyptic literature. But we need to give ourselves a caution in that since it's highly symbolic, we need to be careful to do a few things. There are pictures and images, and those don't necessarily mean exactly what the symbol is. The symbol is pointing to something. The symbol is not necessarily the thing, if that makes sense. So we need to be humble and not dogmatic with our interpretation of it. And we do not want to interpret it too literally. For example, the lion and the lamb. Those are the things that we refer to Jesus in the book of Revelation. Jesus is referred to as the lion and the lamb. Jesus was not literally a lion and he was not literally a lamb. He is symbolically those things. When John uses numbers like the 144,000, that's most likely symbolic. Some groups think that is a literal number, but it is 144,000 is 12,000 times 12,000. So it's giving us the idea of perfection because 12 was a perfect number for them. And so when we read these things, these symbolic images, we need to understand that it is trying to point us to something, not the thing itself. It's using fantasy language, like the idea of the dragon and all these various things that are coming forth, and scrolls and woes and censors and all these things. Those are images trying to convey truth to us. They may not be literally there. It also should not be interpreted as if it is giving us a newspaper description of future events. It's seldom intended to give a detailed chronological account of the future. It might give us clues and help us to know things that will happen, but it's not a detailed history book. And we want to make sure that as we're reading it, we realize that some of it's past tense and some of it is stuff that will occur in the future. And it's giving us a picture, not a detailed description. So when we're reading apocalyptic literature, and when I use the term literature, we tend to think of literature as in fiction, but just apocalyptic writing. This is not fiction in the sense that you read The Notebook by, I can't even remember his name right now, or Lord of the Rings. It's not fiction. This is true, but it's a picture truth. So it may not be literal, but it is true. So we need to understand the background. What is happening to the people receiving the book? In this case, John's people are experiencing persecution for their faith, and they are facing aspects of culture that are pushing on the people to recant and disbelieve. And so we need to know that as we're reading the book, because it will help us understand it. We need to understand the genre. How is the author using common aspects of the genre? So is John using anything that might hint to us at or point to other aspects of the culture or the genre in general to help us understand it? We want to know that. Understanding the purpose. Why is the author writing the book? Knowing that God inspired the author, inspired John, the apostle, to address something that's happening. God intended for the people who had it then to be able to use it then. It's not, God did not have John write that book under the inspiration of the Holy Spirit just so it could be purposeful and meaningful for us now. It's always served a purpose, and it's always been intended to serve a purpose. And it's had that same purpose from the beginning. Now, we are closer to some of what is in Revelation than John's audience was. How close are we? We don't know. Pretty much every generation of the church has thought that Jesus was coming back in their generation. Even you see Paul writing in First or Second Thessalonians. So within 15 years of Jesus ascending to heaven, there are people thinking that Jesus has come already, and they've missed it. And so we are certainly closer than they were, but we don't know how close. God's timing is when God chooses, right? So God could, it could be tomorrow, like a thief in the night, we don't know. Or it could happen in another 1,500 years. We don't know. And so the purpose of the book has always been there. It's not just there for some future generation. It's there for every generation with a purpose. And it's helpful to understand the structure. How has the author structured this book? Apocalyptic literature is creatively structured as a whole, and each aspect plays a part of that whole. So there are, in Revelation, it almost functions circularly, where the author kind of brings us through this circle and then brings us all the way through it and then comes back. And he does it multiple times. So you have sections where you have seven, you have multiple things that are sevens. I think it's sevens. And the structure is intended to convey the meaning. So that's the overall structure or idea of the book of Revelation. And it is something that we should consider, because the purpose is for us to be prepared and to endure. It's a reminder to us of what God's purpose is and what God will complete. Now, there are some things that are in the future for us. There are other things that are in the past for us. So, does anyone have any questions on that? Oh, sorry, my screen went away. My fancy dancy little PowerPoint presentation. Whoop, there you go. But I guess I can stop sharing that. So, since we went through it. So, as we'll consider these things, this overall idea of the big thrust of Revelation is that God wins, but also this call to persevere and endure in the face of that, even when it seems like the whole world is against you. If we look at the seven churches, there is this call to holiness and endurance in the midst of a hostile world. So actually, you know what? We'll probably just walk through the seven churches and do one church a week to start this off and consider those things. But as we are looking at this, I want us to realize that the purpose is, while it does tell us about things in the future, that whether we are in the time where whether the window is short or broad, we can learn from it. And even if it were to happen 1,500 years from now, it would be worth our time and attention to consider and live our lives in light of the fact that God wins. We don't need to have Revelation be this thing that is that we hyper focus on trying to figure out is something that is written in imagery, symbolically, something that is it happening to us right now? Because frankly, friends, it doesn't. If it's happening to us right now, good. If it's not happening to us right now, good. We trust the Lord either way. He comes back when he comes back, and we rest in his return whenever that may be. And so we should let that inform our response and our perspective of the book of Revelation, rather than there's kind of this like jokey image. You see the guy who has the newspaper and then he has the book of Revelation. He's trying to make them match up. Like maybe it is, but maybe it's not. Some of you have been around long enough to where you remember where probably in the 70s, where Soviet Russia, the USSR, was considered the army from the north, and you had people saying the USSR is the army from the north. Well, the USSR is no longer there. communism fell, and now maybe Russia in a new form is the army from the north. But we don't know. Like we have throughout the history of the church, people have tried to attach specific groups and specific peoples to these various things. And during World War II, Hitler was the Antichrist. Hitler's not the Antichrist, not the Revelation one. He was Antichrist. But when we try to do that, we lose sight of the purpose of the book of Revelation, and that's to be ready and endure. So I hope you'll join us as we continue this on. And if you're able to watch on Tuesday mornings, awesome. If not, this will always be on the YouTube after the fact on the YouTube. I don't think you put a "the" there. Man, I just sounded old. It will be on YouTube after the fact. And I hope you'll join us as we go through this journey. So I hope you have a good week, friends. If you have anything you need, let us know. And we would love to walk with you as you seek to honor the Lord and serve him and grow close to him. Okay. Have a great week.